Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening everybody and welcome back to the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Aaron Smith, and in the virtual production hall we have our old buddy Josh Wilkie. Now tonight, we welcome you all to round 7 of the season, coming to you tonight from Snetterton. I know it says Rennsport in the YouTube title, and also in the thumbnail. We apologize for that. iRacing changed it a little bit up. It was originally going to be Rennsport as round 7 for this season, and round 1 for the actual official Formula 4 Championship. However, because Snetterton became an official part, well, a part of base content, they switched it up on us, which was news to all three of us, as we only learned that news about a half an hour ago. But regardless, Snetterton is the track we're racing on tonight. It's a track that's been part of iRacing for quite some time, just recently became part of base content. As I said, tonight we're running on the 200 layout, which only has 8 corners and some pretty long straightaways as well, which is going to create some pretty interesting racing. I think very much akin to what we saw at Spa last time out, where slipstreaming was the name of the game. Now, Aaron, as the Brit here on this broadcast, I think you'd be the one most knowledgeable about this track, and I think I may have to pass it off to you to give your thoughts and opinions about here at Snetterton.
Well, Snetterton is probably, I'd say, among the UK's tracks, I'd say the 4th most famous, I'd say. I mean, you've obviously got Silverstone right at the top. I don't think anyone's really going to argue against that. You've got then Brands Hatch, Alton Park, Donington, and then I'd say Snetterton, probably. It's never been one of my favourite tracks. I definitely think it's not as good as it used to be, as Sam Fitzpatrick would agree with me. He hates this modern version of Snetterton. But nonetheless, I think it's a decent old track. Obviously, there's a bit of British bias coming in there, but I mean, yeah, I think it's an alright track, but I wouldn't call it one of my favourites, you know, even with my patriotism coming in.
I mean, I'll be honest, the most amount of experience I have driving around Snetterton is actually in Project Cars 2 back on the Xbox 360, so I haven't gotten much time to drive around Snetterton over the past week. However, the little track time that I have had with this track has actually been in the F4 car, albeit in the rain, something that we won't be seeing here in tonight's race. So, however, if the F4s return in the not-too-distant future, that'd be pretty cool to see the rain. That would add in a little bit more kick to the dramatic racing that we've seen so far this season It's been dramatic from start to finish, and one of the reasons why is that we have a lot of prizes up on grabs. I believe, if I remember correctly, I should know this since I've said it so many times at the start of this broadcast, £650 worth of Apex Racing Academy subscriptions are up for grabs for the winners of the Pro-Am, and Am championships, and now we always do the currency conversions, so it's 824 US dollars, 759 euros, and lastly, it is 20,605,909 Vietnamese dong. So I forgot last week in the broadcast I was doing at Spa, because I was all by myself, I completely forgot to talk about the currency conversion, so that's a bit of a carryover. That was the one I was going to say at Spa, but we're using it here at Snetterton, and I mentioned in my intro that this is going to be akin to Spa, where we have this long back straightaway, this one being the Bentley straight towards the middle section of this lap after you go through the tight and twisty sections of turn 2 and 3, which is going to be a real challenging section for these drivers. But then they go into the Brundle and Nelson turn 4 and 5, semi-chicane you could call it. It's a very strange corner section. However, one thing you have to keep your eyes on, if you're the drivers or if you're us as the commentators, is the inside of the corners, especially this final corner. You see that curb there, the killer red sausage curb on the inside. A lot of the corners on this track is going to catch out quite a lot of these drivers. So Aaron, with that big killer curb, you can call it an urban plateau if you would, with that urban plateau on the inside of some of these corners, do you think we're going to see an F4 car go flying here in the races we have coming up tonight?
I'd say that's a pretty fair prediction, to be honest. I mean, we've already seen plenty of rollovers this season already. These cars really are very, very sensitive to contact, especially tyre to tyre. You will just go flying. And yeah, combined with that curb, I think it's extremely likely that we will see a couple cars, especially on that first lap where it's clustered, really close and tightly packed together. I definitely think you're spot on with that prediction. We are going to see a bit of incidents today. I've never really imagined Snetterton as one of the cleaner tracks, both in real life and on sim racing. And I'm the same as you. I only really ever played this track on Project Cars 1 and 2. So I don't actually think I've used it on iRacing yet until they made it free. So yeah, it's a very old track, both in real life and on the game. And well, we finally gotten it free. It's available for everyone, and I think it's probably one of the tracks where I'd definitely say it should have been free a long time ago.
I'm just looking through and going through the history of Snetterton. I wasn't really looking into it before the broadcast. As an American that has never done a broadcast or has rarely even driven at this track, you can understand why I don't really look at the history of Snetterton per se. However, it's a track that's been operational in some form or another since 1951. So it's a track with a whole lot of history. It's always been somewhat short in nature, because even back in the 50s, it was only about 2.7 miles long. So this track, somewhat short. We're going to have some short lap times, and we're seeing that here in this qualifying session, 7.5 minutes in, and it's Jones at the top of the board right now at a 107.830, and then the gap between himself and Lewis Gordon is only 13 thousandths of a second. So the gaps right now between the top 5, less than a tenth. So I think that slipstreaming that we mentioned at the very start of this broadcast, as Jones now improves on his lap time to go to a 107.739, I think it's going to be some really, really close stuff. But with close racing, we're also going to see the opposite end of the coin, which is a heck of a lot of chaos. 8 corners here, 8 very challenging corners with their own unique flair. Aaron, what corner at this track do you think is going to be the hardest one for these drivers to try and get through clean?
I mean, I think it's probably going to have to be those final few corners, isn't it? It's very tight, very twisty, and side by side through there is, yeah, I don't think that's a very good idea in any situation. I think most of the track should be relatively fine, but yeah, those last few corners I think are going to be the hot pocket of today, where we're going to see some people, because the corner before that you can go side by side, and then it goes into those final 2 turns where it's like, okay, maybe we should start thinking going single file, and I don't think people are going to want to give each other places, especially with the hard racing that we've seen so far this season. So I definitely think that last corner is going to be a bit tricky. It's very narrow, very tricky just by yourself, let alone trying to race other cars. And of course, it leads on to the main straight, which people are going to want to get the jump on each other then, especially if we can get some runs to the line today. Unlikely, but would be cool if we saw it nonetheless.
I think you pretty much hit the nail right on the head. Murray's corner turn 8 is going to be a pain in the ass because you don't have a straight run up until you have to hit the brakes. You're turning while braking, so that's a very tricky corner. I would not be shocked if we see an F4 car spinning like a top going into that turn. But we're in the dying stages of this qualifying session. I completely forgot about this. Josh, is it okay if we can quickly go through the championship standings right now? I don't know if we're a bit too late here in this qualifying session to bring it up. We'll have to go through this quite quickly here as we're in the later stages of the session. It's still Harvey Jones at the front of the running order, still at that 107.739, about a tenth of a second gap between himself and Lewis Gordon there in P2. Larson jumping up to P3. That's a pretty good lap time from him. The checkered flag has come out in this qualifying session. There's the pro standings well in at the front, and we'll go through the rest of them if we can. I think we actually have, you can see Scootall there at the bottom. It was slightly stuck there. We apologize for that. Might have to put some WD-40 on our SDK graphics there. They got stuck a little bit there. So yeah, you can see Wellen at the front of the pro standings right now. I think we may go to the starting grid here for the first race that we have coming up here, the first heat race of 2. We'll have the top 6 from these races move on to the A main coming up later on this evening. And it's going to be Harvey Jones at the front, Larson in 2nd, Burgesson in 3rd, Poon in 4th, Mark Van Dalen in 5th, Michelson in 6th, Tim Runn in 7th, Elvin Delaguedre in P number 8, that's David Gill in 9th, and then Adrian Sins rounding out your top 10. We've got Lee and Amblard rounding out your top 12. Not good qualifying at all for Amblard, who did not actually set a lap time in that qualifying session, so he's going to be on the back foot here for this first heat race. We're expecting chaos here. I gotta wonder how the run through turn number 1 is going to be like, because you don't really have to brake for it, even though they have a fairly long run until they get to turn 1. That's a quick corner with a whole lot of grass runoff. Pretty much the only sort of runoff you have is a field on the outside of turn 1, so nothing really to hit if these drivers get it wrong coming through 1, especially on the first lap. However, they would not want to put themselves on the back foot so very early on into this race. Turn 2 is going to be the interesting one. That's the first big braking zone of this lap. That'll probably be a braking zone and overtaking opportunity that we see utilized by a lot of the drivers throughout this evening, whether it be the 2 heat races we have coming up, the B main later on this evening, or the A main show where these drivers fight for the points and fight for the prizes. So we're waiting for some of the other drivers to line up here on the starting grid. We're just waiting a few moments here. There's our pole sitter popping his way onto the grid. All the cars have lined up and the drivers are soon going to be on their way. We're waiting for the lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. The drivers are building the revs and now they're on their way into turn number 1. That's a pretty good start there from your pole sitter. He will lead the field. Coming into 1, Larson slots behind. I believe that's Tim Runn looking to find a way to get past your reigning champion Burgeson. Going into 1, fairly clean start for all of these drivers so far, knowing Milek could probably just jinx it as they head into turn number 2 for the first time. We're seeing some drivers try and go for some moves farther in the back. Who was that going wide, going very deep into turn number 2 there? They will not want to try and repeat that at all. I believe that was Tim Runn, if I'm not mistaken. I'll take a look at my live timing screen. Yes, that was Tim Runn, down 5 spots from where he started. Not a great start at all for that Dutch driver as he went deeper than the Chilean miners did about a decade ago, as we're seeing drivers go side by side heading into Brundle Corner, turn number 4. That is very bold, because if you get slightly wrong, you're going to force a driver to hit that killer curb on the inside of 5. But so far, the driver's getting through this first lap clean so far.
Yeah, not too bad from everyone at the moment. I did expect it to be a little bit more chaotic than this, but do you know what? I'm once again, commemorations for everyone getting through cleanly. I've said this before many times this season when it does happen, and well done, especially at a track like this, Snetterton, where it can get really, really tricky at times. And well, going on to the second lap, it's pretty much as we expected, to be honest. I expect this first 2 heats to be actually relatively calm. It's a tricky track to overtake this. And, well, compared to some of the other British tracks, it's a bit more twisty and a bit more unknown, I think, for some of these guys. It's not really a track that many people have raced on. It's very, very new to a lot of these guys. And I think that's Van Dalen that's tumbling down the order. You can see there in the background. And yeah, we're gonna have a quick replay. And Ron, well, can you talk us through what happened here?
Yeah, so this is Van Dalen heading into turn number 2. He had a pretty decent start, was still running quite well, and just got caught up in a sandwich there coming through 2. It was a big stack up with 3 cars. He was unfortunately in the middle of that, nearly came to blows with his teammate Tim Run as he rejoined the track before they got onto that back straightaway there. But that was just, I think, hard racing, you have to say. No driver really at fault, just 3 drivers fighting for a space that wasn't 3 cars long. And sadly for Mark Van Dalen, it ends in tears. We've got some side-by-side action here with Delaguedre and Poon as he went on to the start-finish straightaway here. I saw another driver running wide farther in the back, saw some dust being kicked up here. There's Delaguedre trying to get the move done here on the inside, gets it done successfully on Poon heading into turn number 2. Again, the top 6 move on to that A main later on this evening. So right now it's Calix Poon in that final transfer spot. However, he has a lot of drivers fighting like hell to move into that spot that Poon currently occupies. You've got Amblard, who's had a pretty good recovery drive thus far, started this race in last in P number 12 after not setting a time in that qualifying session. He's currently running in P7, about 4.5 seconds back of your leader Jones, and only about 0.3 of a second off of Calix Poon. So that's going to be a very hard fight between the 2 pro drivers to make their way into that A main. One story that we followed a lot throughout Spa, where we only saw 2 drivers make their way into that A main show, is the AM drivers. Just making it into that main show, if you're an AM, is incredibly impressive and very vital towards your point situation. So the fact that Gil is running in a pretty good spot right now in P8, not in those transfer spots, however, he's still within striking distance in case a driver like Calix Poon, Amblard, or any of the other drivers farther up the field makes some sort of mistake. We're riding on board with Amblard. He's now our camera car of Delaguedre and Poon going side by side, going into 1. Poon gets a move done there on Delaguedre. So now the Pro-Am driver is going to be at risk of a pro as they go into turn number 2, this time by not close enough to get the move done going into the first main braking zone of this lap.
Well, we know how good and feisty Amblard has been so far this season, and well, he's doing the exact same thing tonight, and of course only just outside of that top 6 at the moment. He's got his fellow Frenchman in front of him, but right at the top, it's pretty much stayed as you were. Harvey Jones leading at the top. He's had a bit of a difficult season so far, has Harvey. He's been in some good places, but I think sometimes has just lacked that little finesse, that little bit extra pace compared to the people around him. But tonight seems like he's got a little spring in his step. Of course, it is a home track for him. He's got Lauritsen, who realistically has done absolutely superb in that Pro-Am Championship at the moment. And then Bergson in third, your reigning champion in Pro. Would have expected a bit more from him this season compared to what I saw him do in the last season, but he's still going strong. Of course, going up the inside there of Lauritsen, this could be quite nipple.
Aaron, did we lose you there? I think we may have just lost Aaron. We may have to hold a quick moment of silence.
They just about get sent.
There we go.
Once again. Oh.
Yeah, we lost you there, Aaron, for a second. So your computer was so excited by the racing that it nearly fried itself.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened there. We were discussing before that, yeah, maybe things could possibly go wrong in this broadcast, but we're gonna shuffle along anyway. But Harvey Jones still in the lead, and I predict he could probably take the victory for this one.
I'll tell you what, when your computer cut out and your voice cut out here on Discord, it made a very weird electronic noise. I was about to suggest that you drop that weird sound that you made into on Spotify or something like that. That was very disturbing. This may be disturbing here for Larson as Theodore Bergson is trying to get the move done into turn 1. Wasn't able to clear him on corner exit. However, he's going to have the inside line heading into turn 2. Will be able to get the move done there before they go into the quick left switchback of 3. That's a very unfortunate section, so to speak, whenever I'm driving around this 200 layout. I'm trying to forget now. It's the left-hander of Montreal, turn number 3. That's a very tricky section there. It always catches me out coming into turn 3 right after you go around that hairpin of 2. So it's a little bit of a clunky section. Can catch out some of these drivers if they aren't careful enough. However, those 2 drivers were racing each other quite respectfully, quite hard. And I have to say, Lauritsen, he is doing incredibly. If he was a pro driver, he would still be doing pretty good here this season. He's pretty much made it into, I gotta imagine he's made it into basically every single A main that we've had so far this season. He has been the force to be reckoned with all throughout this Pro-Am season and all throughout this F4 season as well. We're about 7 rounds in now, so we're over the halfway mark, and Larson may be my championship favorite as he's trying to close his way up to Theodore Burgesson as they go into turn 1. Just wasn't close enough to get the move done there heading into 1. However, I think Larson, regardless of where he finishes this race, running in a great spot with about 3 minutes left to go. P3 with about a 3.5 second gap between himself and Michelson in P4. This is a very impressive run here for the Pro-Am driver.
Yeah, I mean, I was just mentioning that Lauritsen has just been an absolutely just stunning driver this season so far. Michelson 4 seconds behind him, the closest other Pro-Am. And, well, that just says a lot, doesn't it? And, yeah, perhaps we will see Lauritsen in that Pro category at some point, maybe in a different Apex series or maybe in the next season of F4 or whatever Formula car we choose to go with next time out. But he's been really, really good this season, and well, he's on course for a podium in this heat race. And well, if he can do that during the feature race, then that would really propel him forward in this championship. But Harvey Jones might be starting to feel the pressure now from Theodore Bergson. Theodore had to think about it going into turn 1, but I just don't think turn 1 is the best opportunity to go for a move. And Harvey's weaving all over the place just to try and just block any chance of Bergson trying to get through. But it's a bit of a short track, not too many slipstreaming opportunities, but I don't know if it's a matter of time here. Bergson does look to have the momentum. He's pulling alongside Harvey Jones side by side through this next corner, and Bergson does choose to back out. That got super, super close there. And Lauritsen was lucky to not get himself involved in that, but I have the feeling on this last lap it's going to be very, very close between these two.
You know, with the yang of having a really long straightaway to slipstream past each other, going down that back straightaway, Bentley Straight, then you go into turn 4 of Brundle, and if you try and go for a move going into that next braking zone, you're going to be on that inside line going into turn 5, which means you have to be in the dusty stuff as you go through turn 4. That's not ideal, and that's a reason why Burgesson wasn't able to pull off the move and got very close to making contact with Lauritsen last time by. However, Theodore Burgesson is looking to try and get the move done. You can see some very hard defending from Harvey Jones as they go into the hairpin, and it's going to be Burgesson and those two making contact as they go through the turn 2 and 3 section. That didn't help add those two at all, as now Larson is trying to find a way to push back Burgesson into that final podium spot. They're now going side by side, and Harvey Jones is loving this because he's not going to have the biggest challenge in the world unless he has some sort of damage on that race car. They're very close as they go through the oh my god, and that's Jones going off there, so I think they're going 3 wide as they went into Brundle and Nelson. That was incredibly close between all 3 of those drivers. I'm shocked they got away with that without there being some sort of massive accident, but Theodore Burgesson is looking to pull away going into the final corner, and unless Larson goes for the send of a lifetime, he is going to be taking the checkered flag to win this first heat race of the evening, coming out of that final turn and onto that start-finish straightaway. And it's Theodore Burgesson, your reigning champion, running that number 1 car, finishing this race in P number 1. He wins this first heat race. Larson in second, Harvey Jones in third, Calix Poon in fourth, Michelson in fifth, and rounding out the transfer spots is Delaguedre. He held off a challenge from Amblard, who must have had some kind of mistake because the gap between those two by the time they took the checkered flag was about 2 seconds. And now we're going to take a look at the replay, the drama that happened at the north end of the field between Harvey Jones, Larson, and Burgesson. Oop, I think we just got cut off there. Ah, dang it. I may have to look at that after this race is done and after this broadcast is done. I may post that somewhere because that was an absolutely awesome move as they went into turn number 4 and 5, and I think we're going to get the starting grid here for the second heat race in just a few moments time. We're waiting for the drivers to line up on the grid. I think we're having, again, we need some WD-40 for the SDK graphics for them to work a little bit more smoothly for us. I think we will get the starting grid for you now, and it's Lewis Gordon at the front of the field. That's going to be Vetty Wheelman in P2, Archie Heron in third, Jetson Adriansons in fourth, Jordan Johnson in fifth, Jeld Heldorn in sixth, Lauren Zotto in seventh, Luan Hunt in eighth. That's Jay Walsh, Lucas Labinson, Nick Polliard, and Gian Zootwell rounding at the top P12 of this field. Zootwell not actually setting a time in qualifying. We'll see if he actually takes a grid here for this race in just a few moments time. The drivers are already lined up on the grid. They're waiting for the green flag to come at. The green flag is at, the lights are on, the drivers are on their way into turn number 1. Pretty even keel start there from your pole sitter. It's going to be him leading the field into 1. Wellen pulled alongside there, didn't want to go for the move around the outside going into that first turn. He may go for a move here heading into 2. He has a fantastic run, was in that slipstream, and now he's ducking to the inside here. He's gonna have a great run there. I think he'll be able to get that move done. We've got some shuffling all throughout this field. I think Wellen and your pole sitter actually ran a little bit wide there, so I think that was a very disastrous run for some of the drivers as they went through the turn 2 and 3 section. It's basically 2 by 2 right in front of them. It's a massive pack. It's a hornet's nest of Formula 4 cars as they're going 3 wide into turn number 4. This is bold and audacious stuff from all of these drivers. If they get it done and they get it done clean, that is beautiful stuff from all those drivers that they went into one of the most challenging sections of this circuit and they got at with their lives. That is unbelievable, Aaron.
I mean, we were just talking before, like, about how sensitive these cars can be, and, well, they both completely chose to ignore that. And what a fantastic first lap for Archie Heron. That move for the lead was absolutely incredible round the outside, going into turn 5. That was some real balls to the wall stuff from the Brits, and I don't know what it is, but it feels like the Brits today just seem to have an extra spark. I mean, I know we're at home here, but it just seems like we're doing well, and well, let's hope I haven't just jinxed it, and we can keep on going. But here is the pass from Archie Heron, and this actually could be overtake of the day, and we're only 2 races in. This took some real kahoonies up the inside, then turns into the outside for this next corner. How they didn't make contact, I do not know, but fair racing from both of them, and that is what you love to see. Just cool, clean racing from some of the best drivers on this service, and well, that's yeah, absolutely amazing there from Archie Heron, and well, that was a really good first lap in this second heat race.
It was cool, clean, calm, and collected. The fact they managed to go through there side by side and it didn't result in any sort of massive contact is unbelievable, but the fight is still continuing all throughout this field. No drivers have really dropped out thus far, so it's been fairly clean for a lot of these drivers as we're coming back to the live action now. Hopefully we are. Again, the SDK graphics, we need some WD-40 on them right now because it's a little bit sticky, so we apologize for that. However, I will tell you that currently in the lead of this race right now is still Archie Heron, up 2 spots from where he started. No driver really dropping back except for Jelt Heldorn, who is now down he's now down to P12 after losing 6 positions for an incident that we'll hopefully get a replay of here in the not too distant future. We have some shuffling all throughout this field. I believe we have a slight issue here, so we apologize for that. We'll call this radio style and we'll just go off the results that we have here on the live timing screen. Wellen has retaken the lead to move ahead of Archie Heron. They're currently running lock astern, as I said. Now we're back to the live action, and that's Wheelman Wellen leading the field going into the final corner to end this third lap. I guess we're on now at this stage. Man, this race has already flown by so quick. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at about a 1:07, 1:08 lap time. I believe this is the shortest track that we've run on so far this season, Aaron.
Yes, I believe it is. I can't really imagine another track which would be shorter. I guess there's a few tracks in Britain which are fairly short. I guess the Indy layout of Brands Hatch would probably do it. I think there's a couple layouts in Alton Park which could be quite slow, but yeah, we do have some tiny tracks. Then again, we're a small country, so can't really blame us. But Archie Heron still trying to go for the lead of this race. It looks like they're working together at the moment, saving their battling until the end of the race, which probably is the smartest thing to do. As we found out a couple times here at Apex, that the longer a battle goes on, the more likely it's going to end in tears. Everyone abusing the track limits there on the exit of turn 5, and I'm not sure if that is an off track or you are allowed to go out that far, but all of them just seem to use the grass there. And well, fair play. If you're allowed to do that, then you're allowed to do that. This last corner, of course, we were talking about that curb on the inside that will just send you into, well, probably into Alton Park. It's that high, especially in these F4 cars. It will just send you. But at the moment, These two are just pulling away from the rest of the field, and I can't imagine we're going to see any fighting between them for a few laps while they just pull away from Lewis Gordon, Adriansons and Johnson and Lewin Hott. And, well, we get to watch the battling between these guys then. If they're not quick enough to battle with the leaders, they'll just battle out for the podium themselves. Adriansons has had a bit of a tough season so far, to be honest, but well, this might be his redemption arc as he goes up the inside of Lewis Gordon. Doesn't look like Lewis is going to fight this one too hard. Round the outside through turn 4 is a right pain in the butt, and well, he chooses not to fight that one at all. And we did have a change for the lead. Archie Heron is back into the lead, but it looks like they are just slipstreaming off each other for now. Doesn't look like it's proper wheel-to-wheel stuff just yet.
Yeah, I think we may see a little bit of teamwork between drivers that aren't actually teammates here. We're over the halfway mark of this race. We're 5 minutes and 45 seconds into this race, so not a whole lot of time left to go. However, these drivers at this stage just working together, trying to pull a decent gap if they come to blows, which could happen. I mean, we have seen it in the past from the series, even in the A main, we've seen some drivers come to blows at the front of the field, mainly Wellen coming to blows with his teammate Kumalo, who hasn't showed up ever since Spa last week, and that was his first appearance in about 2 weeks' time. Lewin Hott has had a terrible turn of things as of late. He was in the final transfer spot. However, he's dropped back like a rock, and I believe as has Lorenzato. Those were the two drivers that were battling for that last transfer spot, and it's come to blows as they were going into turn number 1. Not sure what in the world happened. We're going to take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened between these two. It's Lorenzato on the inside, Hott on the outside as they go into turn number 1. Who's going to be the one that instigates his contact? It's going to be Hott there. I think he just misjudged Lorenzato down the inside of him, and ooh, there you go. Lorenzato making a little bit of contact. I'm sure his left rear suspension is not going to be happy with that small little bump against that tire barrier. So these are two wounded Formula 4 cars that we will see in that B main race, because even if that contact, even if that wall contact didn't happen, these two would be pretty much entirely out of it. So that's unfortunate for those two. It's great news for Jay Walsh, who's right now running in that final transfer spot and has another AM driver, Labinson, who's now battling with Geltorn right behind. This is the just lonely car of Jay Walsh. He's in a fight of his own as the two cars right behind him battle. That's Heldorn going for the move around the outside. That's a pretty good move as they go through turn number 1 there. But Jay Walsh, looking at this stage, should be the only AM driver to punch his ticket into the A main show, which would be a fantastic result there for the AM driver.
Yeah, most definitely. AM's getting into that A main is absolutely huge for them in the championship. Hello, we're going side by side through turns 4 and 5. Oh, they get so close. I believe this is, we're on board with Lewis Gordon, who's actually lost out to Johnson and Adriansons. They're so close again. I believe this is going to be the second to last lap when they come across. Going through the final few corners now. Oh, bit of contact between those two, and surely Lewis Gordon can get past the pair of them. He goes past Johnson. Can he get past Adriansons as well? I don't think he'll be able to. The Belgian is going to have the inside line for this first corner, and I do believe this is going to be the penultimate lap of the race. Is Johnson going to try and make it through wide? He tries to search for it, but I just don't think the gap was there. Johnson goes back up the inside of Lewis Gordon, and, well, that contact round the final few corners, very lucky that Adriansons and Johnson were able to get away with it, and that nothing catastrophic happened between those two. Now onto the back straight once again. Very short track here, so it just goes by in a blip. Lewis Gordon kind of feeling a bit vulnerable right now. He's behind these two cars in the slipstream, but when you're third in a 3-car train, there's not really much you can do unless they both make contact and you just scythe on through. He's going to have to be a bit patient as they get so close to each other. Again, Adriansons this time loses out, and Johnson goes right on through. And Lewis Gordon getting a bit twitchy there, but that was very intense racing between Johnson and Adriansons. But Johnson has been a bit silent in these last few laps. He was 5th a couple laps ago and is now up to 3rd. He's on for a good finish in this first heat race for himself. But this is going to be the last lap. This is going to be white flag for these two and, of course, everybody else. Wellen, can he get a victory here today, which will be very crucial for him? He can be one of the main championship protagonists. He has been fantastic so far this season, nearly drifting it coming out of turn 2 and 3. Honestly, pushing this car to its absolute limit. I'm not sure that Archie Heron is going to be able to get another chance unless something happens to Will Manwellin as we head into the turn 4 and 5 sequence now, and it looks like the Finn has possibly just about done enough. I don't think there's really going to be another opportunity for the Brit to go anywhere else, but we're going to cut back to the battle. This is for 4th place at the moment. Adriansons has fallen all the way down to 5th place. These last few laps have not been kind to him at all. And Lewis Gordon, after battling for him for 3rd, he's still going to end up in 4th anyway. And, well, Lewis Gordon, the man who ended up starting on pole, unfortunately, he's going to come home in 4th. But Will Manwellin, the Finn, the flying Finn, some might like to call him, takes the victory in the second heat race. Had some very, very good pace, and his championship is looking very, very tidy indeed. And Jay Walsh, congratulations to him. 6th place, getting straight through into the A final as an amateur driver, and that is going to pay dividends come the end of the season for the championship.
That is a fantastic result for the Brit. P6 may not seem a whole lot on paper, but with that being that last transfer spot, Jay Walsh is putting himself quite nicely with that AM fight. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he is in the top 5 of those standings. We'll take a look at that in between the B main and A main that we have coming up. We have the B main coming up right now. That was a fairly good and fairly hard fought heat too. I must say, I gotta give a credit to Luan Holt, who cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. I believe finished that race in P7 or P8, so congratulations go out to him, although we will see him in this B main regardless, which I think we'll get the starting grid for you here in just a few moments time. We saw that little guy, I guess it's a tree that they cut into the shape of like a driver standing on top of his car and celebrating. That's always been something that stuck out to me. That's a one main memory that I have here of the Snetterton track. But regardless of the foliage around this circuit, it's Valentin Amblard starting this race from the pole, Luan Holt in 2nd, David Gill in 3rd, Zootwell in 4th. Pretty good recovery drive after started that second heat race at the back, and that's going to be Mark Van Dalen in 5th, Nick Polliard in 6th, Adriansons in 7th, Labinson in 8th, Seth Lee in 9th, Lorenzado in P number 10, Tim Runn in 11th, and Jel Teldorn running at your top 12 for this B main race. This is going to be hard fought. We've got pro drivers trying to find their way to get into that top 4. We've got AM drivers looking to join Jay Walsh and not have him just run away with a whole lot of points from this Snetterton round. The drivers are going to wait, building up the revs. The lights are on, the drivers are on their way into turn number 1, and for the first time, I believe it's actually the P2 starter of Luan Holt getting a better start than your pole sitter. They're going to be side by side as they get into turn number 1, and it's Holt just barely edging ahead. However, he's not going to be able to get the move done. Actually, he is. I thought that he was just about to run off the track. However, Luan Holt moves his way into P1. That's a fantastic start there for the Pro AM driver looking to get his way into the A main race that we have for you in just a few moments time. Some rally action farther in the back. Some drivers nearly spinning as they go through turns 2 and 3. However, so far it's been pretty clean. Knowing my luck, I probably jinxed them. We're going to see about 15 cars spear their way off the track as they go into Brundle here, turn number 4, before they have to slam on those brakes and scrub off as much speed as they possibly can before they go into the very tight turn 5. And there's a driver getting popped up into the air. That was like a skateboard trick with a Formula 4 car. That was bizarre. I'm not sure who that was. As they went into turn 5, we'll have to take a look at a replay to see who that was. That was a terrible accident. Thankfully, we didn't see a car get flipped up onto their lid. However, Zootwell, that is not the way he wants to start his B main race at all. The Dutch driver didn't set time in that qualifying session that we had earlier on this evening. However, he cut his way through the field like a hot knife through butter in that second heat race and was battling for a transfer spot. We're taking a look at the replay now, heading into turn number 5 here, and just, oh yeah, that's 2 cars fighting for 1 space, and Zootwell gets pitched nearly into low Earth orbit as they go into turn 5. Thankfully, Zootwell, I don't think he has too much damage. However, he is massively on the back foot after that crash. Oh, he's in the pits now as well, as is Seth Lee. So we have 2 drivers already in the pits at the end of this first lap. Sadly, there's Zootwell. I think that may be his night over. That's a shame there for the Dutch driver.
I mean, I know EA announced Skate 4, but I did not know iRacing was part of the development for that game. Just popped a wheelie going through turn 4 and 5, and somehow managed to land down perfectly. So I wonder how many points he got from doing that. But definitely not part of the Hall of Fame, unfortunately. But anyway, enough of my terrible Tony Hawk and Skate references. We're going to go back to what actually matters. And well, at the moment, like, oh, that's held on going right off at that final corner. It looked like he did that all by himself. I don't think he made any contact with anyone else. Didn't look like it anyway. And held on really, really struggling in this early part of the race. And well, he's up a few places, but I don't know, it just didn't look like he had that pace on that first few laps. And of course, that mistake into that last corner has cost him a few seconds. And well, every second in this B final matters, of course. And it could have been contact, I could have been completely wrong, but to me, it just looked like a lock up into this very, very tricky last section here at Snetterton. And yeah, just about managed to save it.
I nearly peed myself just looking at that. That was a massive snap for Chels Heldorn as he tried to scrub off the speed coming through 7. Thankfully, he kept it on the, well, he didn't keep it on the road. However, he kept it at the barriers and nearly kept, oh my God, who was that? That was Tim Runn that tried to go for the move heading into 5. And I thought he was about to ramp over the back of Chels Heldorn's car. We nearly saw a Dutch Civil War as they went into turn 5, but Tim Runn not having a very good race meeting here at Snetterton. Sadly for him, he has dropped down to P9 as we have another spinner as they come out of the final quarter. That was a perfect time. I believe those teammates as well. 2 fuel can team year 1 drivers going off in the span of about 15 seconds. It's Tim Runn. I think he just carried way too much speed coming through 4 and tried to, I don't even think that move was intentional, or failed attempt at a move, I should say, as they went into turn 5. I think he just carried a boatload of speed coming through Brundle and it just caught him at Bailey. This is Mark Van Dalen, the car that I thought was going for a spin as they went and exited the final corner. Thankfully for his sake, he managed to keep it on the road, and he's still running at a good position right now in P5. And I have to say, Labinson and Gill, 2 AM drivers currently in that top 4, the drivers that will find their way into that A main race. Mark Van Dalen acting as a little bit of a rolling roadblock of everyone else's chances currently, as we're seeing David Gill get the move done to hold off on that P4 spot there. He's actually the front car of this field. Lorenzato is in the middle of that fight, and I gotta imagine he is feeling quite antsy to be a pro driver and get beat by 2 pro-ams and 2 am drivers. That would not be very, that would be a little bit embarrassing if you're the Frenchman. So I think he'll probably look to get a move done, and that's Gill going for a spin wildly out of control as he comes out of the final corner. I think there might have been a little contact there. Aaron, what do you think?
No, I completely disagree with you, mate. To me, it just looked like, again, another spin, just completely by himself. And again, I could be wrong. So good thing we have replays. Thank you, Josh. Here we go around the final few corners. And it's either huge netcode, and yeah, just was all by himself around that last corner. I don't know if he just got on throttle too early, but it seems like this F4 car around here just is a bit twitchy. I don't know, or maybe it's the new iRacing update has changed this car. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, the car is looking awfully twitchy just around this track, and a lot of drivers seem to be struggling with it. He's held on, trying to I don't know if he was trying to defend or attack on Van Dalen, but either way, the 2 Dutchmen are going at it for 5th and 6th place. They're about a second off of Lorenzato, who we literally were just talking about being embarrassed and not getting through. That spin has now meant he is getting through at this current time. And oh, that was a bit too much curve there from Van Dalen. Gets an off track, but manages to keep it nicely on the track. But yeah, Loren Hot, fairly comfortable in the lead, 4.2 seconds for the Brazilian. And I don't think we will be seeing him at all, apart from this little brief mention, all the way up until the 14-minute mark. He looks really, really comfortable, nearly 5 seconds in the lead, and should be a comfortable win for him, getting him through into the A final. It's just going to be about those last few spots. I think it's going to be fairly comfortable from here on out, but it just depends on the pace of the likes of Lorenzato and whether these guys battle and possibly cause an accident. I've mentioned this before. It's literally just for a grid spot. Let's not lose our heads.
I don't think that these final battles for the transfer spots are going to end in some sort of accident. I think it's just going to result in some sort of mistake. I think we'll see a driver spinning that's currently in those top positions. God forbid any of them. I'm not wishing ill will on anybody, as we see Seth Lee going into the pits after an incident. Just caught that in the corner of my eye. But I think the final transfer spots are going to be more decided by a single car accident. We haven't seen any wheel-to-wheel contact, not a lot of wheel-to-wheel contact in this race thus far. cars. We're seeing Seth Lee. This is coming out of turn number 3, and this is going into the end. I think he just called it quits there. Can't really blame him too much. He was running towards the tail end of the field, had to pit after lap 1, and sadly for him, that is going to be the end of his evening here. But getting back to the point that I was going to mention, the fight for those final transfer spots is going to be decided, I think, by a mistake from one of these drivers rather than two drivers coming to blows, because going through my head and just going through the first 2 heat races and the B main so far, as we're over the halfway mark now, I think we've seen maybe 2 or 3, not even 3, I could say at most 2 cars come to blows throughout this race. It's been fairly clean from a lot of these drivers, so I think it will just be a spin from one of these drivers that decides their fate more than anything else.
Yeah, you could be right. We've seen a couple spins and a few accidents all by themselves, not just in this B final, but just throughout tonight as well. These cars do look a bit of a handful around here, which is actually a bit surprising, mainly under braking and just that last part into the corner where this car seems to be struggling. Not sure if people are running super low brake bias here. So there's not that too many heavy braking zones really for you to worry about locking up the rears, but perhaps I could be wrong. All side by side through this first corner, getting very close. It's held on to Lorenzato. This, of course, is for the last few places in that A final. Lorenzato holding on for now. That's very wide from, I think that's Labson. And now this is going to cause a cluster as we head onto the back straight. This could get very interesting. Adriansons overtakes Labson for 3rd place, and Lorenzato goes up ahead as well. He could put himself into 2nd place. He is at the moment. Heldon just has to watch in awe as these guys go nearly 3 wide. They're all being washed out by one another. Heldon trying to sneak up any chance he can get. He overtakes Labson for now round the outside. That was very opportunistic and very well done by the Dutchman. Gets pushed out wide again. Here's Van Dalen trying to get involved as well. And well, that little error by the Dane of Labenson has just absolutely caused all of these guys to cluster up. And that's Adrianson's going nearly all the way off for that final corner. These guys just keep on making mistake after mistake. 8 seconds to the lead now. That is incredible, and it just goes to show the difference between a driver who's calm and collected and one who is panicking at the sign of not being able to race at any more points today. Well, I really could not predict who is the top 4 going to be at the end of this race, and that's huge contact, huge sky contact. I think that was Lorenzato going over the back. Oh my God, that was huge. That was one of the biggest crashes I've ever seen this season. Labenson now without a rear wing, and well, our producer Joshua Wilkie found that one very amusing. And wow, that was absolutely massive. It just seemed like Lorenzato made contact and just said, well, I give up, and just kept his foot in. I don't quite know what happened there. But I guess we should probably take a look at a replay.
Yeah, I think our producer Josh was laughing more at my random untimely opera singing as I saw that car get pitched up into the air. There's a replay, and oh, there was even more contact farther behind with Mark Van Dalen, and that's, oh my good lord. I was just going to mention, as I went onto the start-finish straightaway, and we had a camera looking at the massive pack of cars, just, you could cover them all by about a second. Even when they went into turn 1, there's a contact that happened with Van Dalen farther behind, and that's, I believe, Amblard that I made contact with, whoever it is. Oh Lord, I think we may have to have a moment of silence for them. That was a very derpy looking accident. We had 4 cars coming to blows in very strange ways. And I just saw at the back a shot there. That's Larson car. He's still carrying on without a rear wing. God bless his heart that he's still out there on track with pretty much all the downforce generated by an F4 car is mainly from that rear wing. So the fact he's still out there on track without that is truly unbelievable. That has to be sketchy. Speaking of sketchy, this Tim Run going for a move here on David Gill going into turn 4 and 5. He gets a move done successfully there, but man, that was it broke up the battle and lost a little bit of our thunder, because we were seeing it was between P2 and P7, separated by about 9/10 of a second not that long ago. However, because of that incident, because of that shamazel as they went into turn 2, it's broken that up quite unfortunately, but still, that was, oh no, as we see Tim Run going for a spin, exiting the final corner. Just as I was talking about him, I was about to mention that he was putting on a pretty good recovery drive after an incident earlier on. Sadly for him, he drops down once again. again has a pretty big gap between himself and the cars farther in the back. Lorenzato is still out on track. Did he actually come into the pits after that incident? I was fully expecting his car to just like lawn dart itself into the grass on the runoff area of turn 2 and him to just have to tow back to the pits. This is Ambler that we're riding on board with. I think he's going to tip over right as Lorenzato goes into low Earth orbit. Ooh, and yeah, that's Ambler. Bink goes our camera, so sadly, it reappeared very briefly there, so sadly we'll have to spend some money on cameras before the next race of this series next time out in 1 week's time. Luan Hawk, meanwhile, is just dominant in this race. I believe he's going to be taking the white flag this time, but actually I believe this is going to be, I'm trying to do the math in my head, there's going to be 2 to go here, so just a little bit short of that white flag. However, I don't think he really cares. He has a massive gap between himself and the cars running farther in the back, so I think Luan Hawk really at this rate with the dominant lead that he has, he can carry on for another 10 laps as far as he cares. He's leading, he's punching his ticket into the A main, as long as I didn't just pull off the most unfortunate commentator jinx of my life. I think he's very happy about the position he's running in. Right now it's all pro-ams currently in those transfer spots, and the pros are entirely out of it. Lorenzato with that contact, and Ambler having to tow back to the pits after going for a wild ride going into turn 2. So we're not going to see any more pro drivers punch their ticket into that A main race. I believe this may be the first time that we haven't seen a pro driver punch their ticket into that main show with this B main.
I mean, it's honestly both Frenchmen in the space of literally 2 seconds went flying, and well, some would say best to leave that one as it is. But anyway,
leave it.
I'm leaving it. I didn't say anything. But it was yeah, Lorenzo went flying over, I think it was Labson, and then Ambellard went tumbling over. So one was a washing machine, the other one was a plane. That's probably the perfect way to describe it. Here is Lorenzo going right over the top. Surprisingly, his car had literally no damage. Well, that
barely
F4
got a
car
paint
is
chip
built
from
like
that.
a brick. And there is Ambellard over, just on his roof on the other side. But yeah, just that F4 car really tough as nails. But unfortunately, it means nothing because he's still down in 10th, about 7 seconds off of the next car. So yeah, there's 2 pros in this race who we really would have expected to get through, just getting caught up in messy incidents, and well, it was all of their own fault. They just massively misjudged it, and both went flying over in different aspects. So yeah, this has been a fantastic B final as normal, and well, it's a white flag as we didn't even realize. And well, here's Luan Hot, who like I said, we haven't really seen much of in this race. He's going to cross the line to take a very dominant victory in this B final. Couldn't really say much about him. He was just really clean, really consistent, and didn't need to take any risks. Adrian, since he eventually does get through, decent drive by him, held on, somehow managed to avoid all of the carnage, and Van Dalen the same for him as he blows up his engine, coming over the line. David Gill could have made it through, but just a costly mistake by the Brit, unfortunately. Tim Rutten tried his best, and oh dear, is there going to be more contact and a bit of profanity used in the chat there from Nick Polliard, but Labson driving those last, I think it was 4 laps just without a rear wing. Not quite sure how he managed to do that and keep it on the track, but fair play to the Dane who nearly managed to get through. But wow, that was a very interesting B final.
Yeah, interesting indeed. I am completely shocked the fact that Lorenzato had such little damage after getting popped up into the air. His rear end probably had to be about, I don't know, like 10 feet in the air, probably a little bit more than that. The fact he crashed down to earth with how high he was is truly unbelievable. High as in altitude, not a high as in illegal substances that we can't mention here on Apex Racing TV. And the fact that he didn't even have a paint chip after that is unbelievable. But now we can decompress a little bit bits. We've now got most of the action, well, most of the races, I should say. We've got 3 of the 4 in our rearview mirror now. However, I think the action is still ahead here with this A main, which is going to be dramatic in a lot of the classes. And one class that we won't really see a fight in is actually the AMs, as with all the chaos that happened there and none of the AMs punching their ticket in through that B main, we're going to see Jay Walsh as the only AM driver in this race. That is very impressive, and that's going to be a great haul of points for him. Speaking of points, I think we'll touch on that here. I think we'll review the AMs because we looked at that very briefly at the tail end of the qualifying session. We'll go through this as best as we can here in this warm-up. Actually, I think we'll start with AM here. And it's Tim Runn and Lucas Labinson tied entering this race at 387 points, and a pretty good big gap between themselves and Jay Walsh. That gap is going to diminish after tonight and everything that's going on. So Jay Walsh being the only AM driver to punch his ticket in, that is going to help him quite a lot there. So I can imagine when we show up to the next round here of this Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship, that is going to be a fantastically close fight between those top 3. And I think we'll touch on Pro-Am here. Aaron, I'll let you take this one.
Well, this is probably my favorite championship, honestly. I'm really intrigued to see who can come out on top on this. Heldorn, of course, just about scraping through into that final. Lauritsen, he gets himself sometimes into those tricky situations, being a bit more upfront, but is extremely quick. Michelson is very consistent. I'm interested to see what he can do in these final few rounds. And McFarquhar, I don't believe is here tonight, but if he can turn up for those final few rounds, he is another contender. Van Dalen as well could be in there as well. I believe my dog is howling. I apologize if you can hear that. I don't know what he's howling about, but probably the fact that he's just witnessed this final, and probably, yeah, he's still howling. This is the pros and cons of owning a husky. He just randomly decides when to speak, but here is the pro standing. He keeps howling. It's very distracting. But anyway, the Finn at the top, unsurprisingly, has been very, very good these past few rounds. Pretty much ever since he's entered the championship, he's been fantastic. And everyone else has kind of just been picking up the scraps. And I think you'd agree with me, Ron. I think he's the favourite for the championship is Will Manwellen. He's just been absolutely amazing.
Well, I gave him the nickname Wheelman for a very good reason. He is one hell of a driver, and he has shown that ever since he joined this series one round late. It was actually at Silverstone when he first joined this series. However, he has been a force to be reckoned with ever since he joined it, and I think we'll have to see how he does here in this A main that's coming up, and we're going to get the starting grid for you here in just a few moments' time. That's Theodore Burgess, your reigning Apex Racing Academy F4 champion. He'll be starting this race from the pole. We've got Wheelman Wellen joining him in P2. That's going to be Ask Larson running at your top 3. Archie Heron in 4th, Harvey Jones in 5th, Jordan Johnson in 6th, Calix Boone in 7th, Lewis Gordon in 8th, Michelson in 9th, Jetson Adriansons in P number 10, and that's going to be Delaguedre and Jay Walsh running at your top 12. A fantastic result there from Walsh. Regardless of what happens here in this race, the fact he made it in is really impressive. That's Luan Hott, Adriansons, Heldorn, and Mark Van Dalen running at your 16 car field here for this A main. The green flag has come out. The drivers are on their way into turn number 1. It's a pretty even keel start there as we have Wellen blinking his way into turn number 1. Some drivers shuffling for position farther in the back. That's not going to be good there for Wellen. Not going to be good for Burgess as he tries to battle a car that's blinking like a really glitchy PowerPoint presentation. But it's a pretty good start there from Burgess as he leads the field into turn 2. That's Jordan Johnson going for some moves around the outside as they go through turns 3 and 4. That was some very hard stuff from him as he moves up the field quite nicely with that. We have some drivers going off the track farther in the field, and it's still a little bit blinking there from Vetty Wheelman Wellen. That would be really unfortunate. As you said, he is one of the fastest drivers in the series, and he is blinking quite a lot. Hopefully that I'm not sure if that's being picked up on the broadcast here, but from my perspective, he is blinking quite a lot, so that's not going to be... How do you attack a battle with a car that's blinking really badly, Aaron?
Very cautiously, very cautiously. There's not really much you can do. Honestly, the best thing you can hope for is that maybe you get a bit of overspeed on them and just manage to just be in front of them. That's honestly the best you can do, but it seems like he's relatively back to normal at the moment. Luckily, Bergson is the car in front at the moment, but Wellen is following him very, very closely as we head into turn 1. And, well, it's... We've discussed this before. It's not the easiest track to overtake at, especially for the top drivers where they're all pretty evenly matched. This is probably the best opportunity they'll get on this back straight into turns 4 and 5. And, well, it's very difficult to get it done as it pinches you going into that right-hander. But it looks like Wellen is going to try go for it. Is Bergson going to cooperate here? I think he is. It looks like he's just backed out of it. It's not smart to go side by side through there. You lose too much time. You could end up on the curb, and well, we've seen what ending up on the curbs can do to you. We've seen that a couple of times. Cars going flying, and let's hope these guys can keep it clean all the way until the end, because they're fantastic drivers. We want a close championship. And, well, let's see who else can get involved. It's the top 4 separated by 6/10 right now. That is incredible stuff.
And at the tail end of that top 4 right now is Lorton. He's sticking out a little bit like a sore thumb with the SDK graphics that we have on the left-hand side of your screen. He's the only one with a green ticker. That means he's in that Pro-Am category. So it's quite impressive that he's one of only 2 Pro-Am drivers in the top 10 right now, as it looks like that Burgess was going to attempt a move, or at least looked for a move going into turn 2. Just wasn't close enough there on Wellen coming into the pseudo hairpin, shall we call it. I guess it is technically a hairpin, although it certainly doesn't feel like it. It feels like a more stretched out and really strange chicane as you go through turns 2 and 3. But regardless, it's Wellen still leading the field about a 1/10 of a second, separating himself and Burgess right now as they go into turn number 5 this time by. We have a longer race here, 18 minutes long, so it's the longest race we've had so far this evening, so there's plenty of opportunities for these two to go side by side. I thought they were going to go side by side as they went into turn 6. That would have been very bold if Burgess tried to get that move done, but he has a fantastic run. He's in that slipstream. The dirty air isn't a big factor here in these Formula 4 cars, so it's allowing Burgess to just stay really close and stay tucked into the back of Wellen. He didn't have the best of runs, however, going onto the start-finish straightaway, so we may see drivers like Archie Heron or even Ask Larson try and go for a move on him heading into turn 1, just not close enough to even attempt a move as they go into that first corner. Harvey Jones has gotten involved in this fight. He's broken away from Jordan Johnson currently in P6 as we see some off-track action, some shuffling and dust being kicked up, as that was Heron trying to go, actually no, that was Harvey Jones trying to go for the move there on Lortson. They're still going side by side as they go onto the back straightaway this time by. That was very close to contact. They probably nearly crashed about 5 separate times there, but right as I was saying that Harvey Jones had broken away from Jordan Johnson, he is now right tucked up to the back of him, so the American looking to try and break his way into the top 5 here. Maybe he'll try and go for a move heading into this section here. Was stuck on the outside as they went into 5. That is not a bold move. Well, it is a bold move if you attempt it, but it's not a smart move if you still try and go for it. So Jordan Johnson backs out a little bit here. It was the top 4 separated by about 6/10 of a second. Right now we've had a little bit of a breakup farther up towards the front of the field. However, between Larson and P4 all the way back to Gordon and P8, the field is separated by about 1.5 seconds. So this is a very hard fight up towards the front of this field.
And work can only get better from here, hopefully. Fingers crossed. It's been relatively clean so far. I mean, on that last lap, it did genuinely look like Harvey Jones was going to send Lauritsen back to Denmark, but luckily that didn't happen. And it was, they somehow made it through really, really cleanly. And again, really, really good job by both of them. And it looks like Lauritsen's just about managed to catch up back to the top 3 once again. It's just pulled away from Harvey Jones. Looks like Jones on that last lap might have got a bit desperate, made a bit of a mistake going up the inside, and is under pressure from Jordan Johnson right now. And for the moment, I'm not going to call him Jimmy because he's doing well. So we're going to keep that nickname just in case something bad happens. But 6th place at the moment for Johnson, not too bad. And he's got some good pace on him. He looks quicker than Harvey Jones at the moment. That's very wide for Vetty Wellen. It could be under pressure from Bergson heading into turn 1. And, well, it's a tricky overtake, but it could be possible. Is he going to get the overspeed? He's going to back out for the minute, and following a car through there, you can feel the dirty air. There's so little, but there is dirty air. It catches you out just that little bit too much. Looked like they both went way too deep into that corner, and they're now super close together. It's the top three separated by 3/10 right now. This is going to be super close heading into the next few corners. And of course, Bergson chooses this opportunity to put pressure on the Finn for the lead of the race. He's not pulled ahead just yet, but Bergson trying to go around the outside, now has the inside line for this next corner. Bit of contact between those two, and Archie Herring goes through on Wellin, and Wellin might lose 4th place now, and he's gone down to 4th place to Laritson as well. That was a very badly misjudged few corners there by the Finn, and your championship leader, I think he just thought that Bergson might back out of it, but Bergson just had so much speed around the outside of turn 4 that it put him in an amazing place into turn 5, got into the lead, and well, Wellin down to 4th place and might even lose 5th as well.
That was a terrible series of events for Vetty Wheelman Wellin. We're following him heading into the end of the back straightaway, into Brundle, then into Nelson. This was a beautiful move, I must say, from Burgess. The fact he held on and got the move done. Yeah, a little bit of contact. I suspected that there's a little bit of contact between I can't spit my words out here, between the two of them as he came out of Nelson turn 5 there. I wonder, is there a little bit of damage possibly on Vetty's car? There may possibly perhaps be a little bit of damage there. I don't think that contact was heavy enough to spawn some sort of damage, as we're seeing Harvey Jones go side by side here, making contact. That is, who's that involved there? That's Lewis Gordon that he's just made contact with as they came out of turn number 5. So sadly, I will not call him Jimmy John. Just right as I said I wasn't going to call him Jimmy Johnson there. Sadly for Johnson and Gordon, they both spear off the road. I think that was just 2 cars fighting for the same piece of real estate on track. We may have to take a look at a replay after this cools off between Heron and Burgess. They're bump drafting going down the start-finish straightaway. Once again, the field is incredibly close. The front 5 separated by less than a second currently. So even though Harvey Jones is at the tail end, he's a tail gunner of this field, he wouldn't be out of this because we've seen some hard battling between all of these drivers. We could see some drivers come to blows between now and the end of this as Harvey Jones and Vetty Wellin go side by side as they went into 2 with Harvey Jones moving up into P4. So Wellin, who looked like he was going to be in control of this race, we were talking about how he tried and put a stamp on this fantastic evening. He's now fighting for his life to stay in the top 5 as Burgesson and Heron have battled up towards the front. It's now Heron leading this field about a 1/10 and a half over Burgesson. Currently, hard stuff between all these drivers. Calix Poon now trying to go for a move around the outside of turn 6, going into 7, and they're making contact. And oh my god, the fact they didn't go into that barrier is truly unbelievable. But Wellin and Poon, low bit of damage I can imagine on both of those Formula 4 race cars, but the fact they hit each other as hard as they did as they came out of bomb hole of turn number 6, the fact they did that and they didn't end up in tears is truly unbelievable.
I think it was just fantastic car control from both of them, but unfortunately terrible awareness from both of them that unfortunately caused that incident. Here's what happened between Lewis and I actually genuinely nearly called him Jimmy Johnson without even thinking about it, but yeah, just again misjudging how close they are to each other, and Johnson there I think just squeezed Lewis just a bit too much, unfortunately. And I think Poon's had another issue. He's fallen all the way down to 8th place, and Michelson's up to 6th. Where on earth has he come from? Fantastic job from the Pro-Am driver. And here's the incident between Wellin and Poon. Poon sees the opportunity, and well, he's allowed to go around the outside there, of course. He's more than allowed the room, but Wellin just doesn't leave in the room. I've got to say, that's on the Finn there.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there, Aaron. Putting on my race steward's cap for just a few moments here before I rip that off and put the commentator one on. If I was in the race control room, I'd probably issue at least a warning to Wellin, because that, I mean, it wasn't, he had to have known that Poon was on the outside. That, or he got a very brief, clear call from his spotter as Poon is now trying to claw his way up through the field, going for a move here on Adrianson's into turn number 1. He's got that inside line, not quite alongside as they enter the corner. He's still going to have that inside line as they go into 2, backstab that move there. But Poon, I mean, he established a line, he established dominance on that outside, so you have to put all the, well, I wouldn't say all the blame, because Poon went for a somewhat aggressive move. Actually, no, I would say Wellin is the by quite a long ways the most responsible for that incident, because he just ran him out of room. He pretended like the driver on the outside of him just wasn't there, but sadly for Wellen and Poon as well, Poon was probably the one hurt the most by that, as he's currently running in P8. Right behind him is Luan Holt, who's put together a fantastic drive, as has Archie Heron, who still continues to lead this race as a pretty big, as a nice peloton forming between himself, Burgesson, Lartson, and then Jones a little bit farther back, about 0.6 of a second, separating Lartson and Jones at this over midway stage of this race. This fight is going to be a fantastic one between now and the finish. Lartson, as much as I can imagine, he is very happy that he's running in P3, a fantastic result for the Pro-Am driver. He may seek a little more. So would we see Lartson trying to act like a little bit of a spoiler in this pro party here in the podium positions to try and grab a win here when he can?
If I was in Laritson's position, I would. I genuinely, you don't get this opportunity many times as a Pro-Am, and when they come, you just gotta take them. And 3/10 away from the lead of the race with only about 6 minutes to go, he has good pace. We've seen it throughout all of tonight. I don't know if it's quite enough, but if he gets a good opportunity, if he gets a bit lucky, it will be a story for the ages. A Pro-Am driver taking victory in a feature race, that's going to be one huge for his championship hopes. And it's just going to feel good getting an overall win. It's an amazing feeling the first time you do it. And no, it's not completely out of the question, but he has got Harvey Jones, Bergson, and Archie Heron to contend with. It's not an easy bunch that he's got to contend with, but of course, he's not an easy guy to contend with himself. So this is going to be a very, very fun final few laps. 4 drivers, only one winner. You could almost call it the ending of Cars 1, but maybe not quite as intense.
Yeah, maybe not. Of course, this is in, well, it is pixels here. However, it's not cartoon characters. These are real drivers behind the wheel of virtual race cars here. And I can't decide who's going to be the one that I want to keep my eyes on in this fight. I think Burgesson probably wants it the most out of all of these 4, as much as Lartson has the will and the drive to try and snag a win here. And while he has an opportunity, still a podium would be a fantastic result for the Pro-Am driver. I'm just not convinced about his pace. And as my voice is slowly giving out there, I think Burgesson is going to want it the most out of all of these 4. He is the reigning champion, as I said, and is looking to snag a win here in round 7 of the season. So I think right now, as we approach the final stages of this race, less than about 4 minutes left to go here in this race, I gotta wonder, will Burgesson just try and stay here as Harvey Jones is trying to look for a move around the outside, going into the hairpin? This would be bold if he gets it done. They nearly made contact. That was a massive slide there as Lartson came out of turn 2, but Harvey Jones pulled off the move to snag that final podium position from the Pro-Am driver. However, despite the fact that he's dropped out to P4, still fantastic result there for the Dane, as we're seeing Burgesson and Heron go side by side at the end of that back straightaway, heading into 4 and 5, and they're still going side by side. Burgesson may try and go for the move that Poon tried to pull off on Wellen not very long ago. He has to back out of it, but he is still very close at this stage. Will Burgesson try and hold off on the move? Will he try and get it done now and just wait to try and defend towards the later stages of this race when we approach the final few laps in just a few moments time? Or is Burgesson just going to try and play it a little bit safe, stay behind, and then just wait for the final 2 laps of this race to really challenge Heron?
Honestly, the fact that this lap is just so short, it makes the racing even more intense, because, well, we just keep getting it every single minute. It's just the same thing, the same corners. And I have to say, that overtake by Harvey Jones on Laritsson was fantastic. And fair play to both of them for, I mean, when I say just, I do mean just leaving each other a room. I thought that was going to be curtains for Laritsson, but luckily, I mean, just look at this shot. Absolutely beautiful. All 4 cars chasing one thing. And a bit of a twitch there from Bergson trying to defend from Harvey Jones. They're all just trying to catch each other out in these final few laps. Not too many opportunities left for all of these drivers, but any one of these 4 could end up on the top step. And I mean that it's going to be difficult for, you know, Laritsson and Jones. A bit more likely for Bergesson, of course, but Archie Heron, man, what have you got up your sleeve? We're heading into the final few laps now. when they cross the line. It'll be about 16 minutes remaining. They're going side by side, wheel to wheel, over the start-finish line, heading into turn 1. Archie is not going to want to give this one up at all. He has the inside line for the first corner. They are so close to contact. I'm pretty sure they did make contact. Bergeson trying to go around the outside of turn 2. They both brake as late as they can, stamping hard on that brake pedal. But it looks like Heron has just about managed to stay ahead, as Bergeson just couldn't quite find the gap to get ahead. Here comes Harvey Jones now. What can he do? He looks like he's going to try to go around the outside. Laritzen's just going to have to watch in awe as these three drivers go side by side. Bergeson to the lead of the race. Heron's going to try and defend it. Goes deep into turn 5. They're side by side. We've seen this one before. Can it end better than last time? They're very close to contact again. Heron just about sneaks back up into first place. Bergeson now under pressure from Harvey Jones, but he does have the inside line for this next corner, and Archie Heron gets all out of shape. There's a bit of contact, and Archie Heron's been sent round, and Harvey Jones is in the lead of the race. Archie Heron was spun round by Theodore Bergeson coming out of that final corner, and Archie Heron is going to fall down to 6th place now. We're going to have to look at what actually happened there, but wow, that was super unexpected. I think he just got out of shape into that final corner.
Yeah, I think Heron took a little bit too much of this curb, bit off a bit more than he could chew, hit that curb on the inside. Yeah, it was a little bit of contact there with Bergeson. I was thinking that it was just a quick little self-spin and a well, very unfortunate spin from Archie Heron, but no, he did get pitched around a little bit there from Bergeson, but never mind that. We've got a side-by-side fight here between Harvey Jones and Lordson as Bergeson is in P3 trying to get past the both of them in the dying stages of this race. Bergeson is now trying to go down the inside of Lordson heading into turn number 6. He won't be close enough to get the move done, and we'll see, will Harvey Jones be able to hold it off? Will Lordson go for a move? Will he go for an absolute send heading into the final corner? They're getting on the brakes now, trying to scrub off as much speed as they can. Harvey Jones aced the exit coming out of that final corner, and unless Lordson had some godlike exits and will go side by side with him, it's not going to happen, and it's going to be Harvey Jones taking a shocking win here at the F4 race at Snetterton. It's going to be Lordson taking a fantastic P2 as a Pro-Am driver. That's a great result for him, and that's going to be Theodore Bergeson finishing in P4, Wellen it's Bergeson in 3rd, my apologies, Wellen in 4th, Poon in 5th, Archie Heron there in a very disappointing and upsetting 6th, Adrian Sins in 7th, Michelson in 8th, Lewin Holt in 9th, and Mark Van Dalen rounding out your top 10. We're going to take a look at another replay of this dramatic run before they took the white flag. Archie Heron had not gotten a good exit here the last lap and last time around. He had run wide and actually clipped that gravel on the outside as he came out of that final corner. So Heron was looking to try and late apex it coming out of that last turn to have a great run going onto that start finish straight away, taking that white flag. Just sadly for him, he misjudged it, hit that curb, and I don't think if I'm being honest, I'm not sure if Theodore Bergeson could have done anything different there. I think it was just how badly Archie Heron had hit that curb and was all kinds of screwed up exiting that final turn. I don't think there's much those two could have done to make that accident not happen. Running on board, this is Harvey Jones's view of it. I'll provide the sound effects for this as those two spin around. Whoop! That's the only noise you can describe it. Whoop! He just slipped through and got by the both of them right as they were taking the white flag. Harvey Jones has to be very ecstatic. Archie Heron has to be kicking himself. He has to be infuriated with how that second to last lap of that race ended. I said before we started that A main that the action, well, the main action from tonight was yet to come, and I think that race just proved it. What do you think, Aaron?
I mean, I'm a speechless, mate. I've no idea how to feel about those final few laps. That was just, I mean, it summed up today perfectly, didn't it? I mean, I honestly didn't think we'd get that amazing racing here at Snetterton, but boy, was I wrong, and I'm glad I'm right. When I say before a race there's probably going to be bad racing, I'm hoping I'm wrong, and today is one of those days. I'm glad I was wrong. This has been amazing from start to finish. And one thing as well, Wellen was at one point, I think, 4 seconds off the lead. He ended up finishing 7/10 off. I don't know how we did that. But, I mean, he still only got 4th, but he somehow just gained 4 seconds. They were battling very, very hard for those final few laps, but he could have been a contender very easily had he not made those few mistakes in the early part of the race. And Harvey Jones, an unlikely winner today, but ended up being one anyway. Lauritsen could have easily taken that victory as well had he not given up that place to Harvey just a few laps earlier that easily. And yeah, Bergeson's probably a bit kicking himself, would have wanted to take that victory, but wow, just typical F4s and just absolutely fantastic stuff.
You know, as much as there's a little bit confusion with all three of us wondering if this race was actually going to be held at Rudskogen or it was going to be held at Snetterton, I'm kind of glad it was held here because I don't think Rudskogen would have been able to put on the fantastic racing and show the absolute scenes that we saw here from tonight's action. Man, that was unbelievable from start to finish. We had championship contenders crashing at, drivers coming to blows, and I think the main driver that got away with that with maybe the least damage, I think for some of these drivers, was mainly just about damage control throughout most of that A main. One driver that pulled it off quite well was Vetty Wellen, finishes this race in P4, and considering some of the other challenges, certainly for Archie Heron, who was involved in that incident and actually finished 6th, a few positions behind, I think Vetty Wellen, despite the fact he probably wanted to take the checkered flag or at least a podium from this race, I don't think he's too upset about finishing this race in P4, and after the race that he just had, I can't really blame him.
Yeah, no, I've got to completely agree with you there. It was just, for everyone, it was just a chaotic race from start to finish, and I think the only thing about that incident at that final corner, I guess the only thing that the stewards might say is that, you know, Bergson's the car behind. He's the one who has to take caution, but it was a very awkward line from Archie, and he hit that curb, and it looked like he was going to make a mistake anyway, so it'll be interesting to see what they say after the race, but I mean, I'm in agreement. Yeah, I don't think that was on Bergson at all. I just think Archie just massively misjudged that one. All three of them very lucky to have gotten away with no contact really at all from that final skirmish. And would have been an absolute just amazing story to see Lauritsen take that win. As I did say, any one of the top 4 could take it, and well, Harvey Jones was 4th, I think around 5 laps before that, and ended up winning. So you just got to play your cards right.
Well, now we're going to be entering the later stages of this season. It's going to be 3 rounds to go when we show up to Mugello next time out, next Saturday here on Apex Racing TV. I'll ask you this here real quick, Aaron, before we wrap things up. What are you looking forward to in 1 week's time at Mugello? I think that's going to be a pretty damn good race. What do you think?
I was just about to eat a mini egg, damn it. Mugello, I'm mixed on Mugello. I think it's good for, I think I might have said this before, I think it's good for lower formulas and lower speed racing. I think once you get to sort of Formula 1, GTPs, I do think it becomes a bit silly. There's not really anywhere to overtake. It's just fast and medium corners. And it is very difficult to get some good wheel-to-wheel racing. But in these Formula 4 cars, I think we'll get some pretty good racing at Mugello. I think they're just about slow enough, but have just about enough downforce to make it good. And I think it was going to be really fun. I struggle to speak there, especially because it's going to be a slipstream fest down that main straight. Lap 1 is going to be really interesting. We've seen lap 1 at Mugello go crazy many times. We saw it when F1 raced there a few years ago, and I think it's going to be a similar story. The lap 1 of race 1 is going to be mayhem, and I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see what the rest of the grid think about it.
Well, if anyone would like to stay tuned for that race in 1 week's time, remember to hit the subscribe button and do all that. But before we close off this chapter from this race here at Snetterton, we'll finally go through the results here from this very dramatic A main, filled with action, full of carnage, and full with a very close finish as well. It was Harvey Jones finishing this race at the front for Alpha Esports, a fantastic win for him. Only less than a tenth of a second separating himself and Ask Lauritsen at the end of that race. That's a very good result for the Pro-Am driver. That's going to be Theodore Burchson running at your podium in third. Vetty Wheelman Wellen finishes this race in a somewhat disappointing, but I think he won't be too upset about the result he had, finishing this race in P4. That's Poon, the driver he made contact with, finishing right behind in fifth. Archie Heron, he'll be kicking himself after that second to last lap of this race. He finishes this race in sixth. Adrian Sins in seventh. Alexander Michelson finishes this race in eighth. Luan Halt finishes in ninth, a pretty good result there as well for one of the other Pro-Am competitors. Mark Van Dalen will round out your top 10. Elvin Delaguedre finishes this race in 11th. That's another Adrian Sins. Dara Adrian Sins finishing this race in P at number 12. Jay Walsh finishing in P13. We barely looked him throughout that entire race. He finishes, actually have Lewis Gordon, who's involved in that Shamazel in the middle section of this race. Lewis Gordon finishes in 14th, and that's Jordan Johnson and Jelt Heldorn rounding at the field, both many laps down after incidents in the early stages of this race. But just as you were talking about the exciting racing we have on deck for Mugello in 1 week's time, that is going to be a fantastic race. There's that long start-finish straightaway where the drivers are going to be slipstreaming past each other. That's going to be good, especially on lap 1 with that pretty long run before they go into turn 1. We'll just have to wait and see. So as I said before, if you want to see that action at Mugello in 1 week's time, remember to hit the subscribe button, notification bell as well. If you've used YouTube for about 5 minutes, you know pretty much roughly what to do if you want to stay up to date of everything going on here on Apex Racing TV. And after this stream, how about you take a look at the highlights that we put together of all the broadcasts that happened in February. I looked at that video and I was mentioned in a few times. That's definitely not the reason why I'm shouting it out. However, it's a pretty good video and shows you all the action that we have here on Apex Racing TV and gives you even more reason to subscribe. As I said before, the next time you'll see this series is at Mugello in 1 week's time, same place here on Apex Racing TV, and I hope to see you all there for that. But as for tonight's broadcast, I think that just about does it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie working all the cameras and doing a wonderful job in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.